Back to the Jupiter podcast. I am your host, Tom Franklin, and today we have on Mark Elliott Fults. He came to me highly requested from a guest I had on earlier this month, Lynn Schrader Hill, and she was like, "You've got to have Mr. Fults on." I was like, "Okay." I just talked to him a little bit backstage. He seems to be a really cool guy. He's kind of, he just goes with the flow, and we're going to have a lot of fun. If you keep coming back to the Jupiter podcast, please do me a favor, like and subscribe to the channel. It helps me out. It doesn't cost you anything. It does a big deal for me. Trying to get this information out there. Things that interest you, like everything you've seen in the intro, conspiracies, ghosts, paranormal, Bigfoot, consciousness, psychedelics, UFO phenomenon, all those things you can find here on the Jupiter podcast. You can also find me on Rumble. You can also find me on Spotify as well. You can also become a member and you get a nice screen desktop background, and you also get yourself an interview earlier than everybody else as well. And you can also go down to the bottom and click on my PayPal account if you'd like to send me a couple bucks so I can update. Thank you very much, Pam. I will be getting either a new microphone or a new computer. We'll see which one breaks first. So that's all the housekeeping I got to do. So let's welcome to the Jupiter podcast, Mr. Mark Elliott Fults.
Howdy! How are you doing?
I'm doing good, buddy. How are you?
I'm great. I'm down here in Florida.
Are you in Florida? Which part of Florida? There's a hurricane coming out. I mean, this is going to be coming out like the second week of November, but what part are you in? Or around?
I'm in Pensacola, or near Pensacola.
So you're going to be okay.
We're going to miss it. Yeah.
But you got the last one, though, didn't you?
No, we had beautiful weather. Everybody else got it. And I told a friend, everybody panics and calls me from everywhere else. And I go, well, if you see a witch on a bicycle flying by your house, we had a hurricane. So I'm like,
it's funny because I'm down here in the Yucatan Peninsula. I'm down here in Campeche.
Yeah.
And it just went by us, and we got a little bit of rain, a little bit of wind, and then it's going to go up and attack Florida. So I was just like, I think Lynn said that Sin said that you're in Cynthia, I'd imagine it would be that you're in Florida. So I figured I'd ask you that question.
Oh yeah, we're in beautiful little Florida, and I'm crossing my fingers for everybody else.
Yes, absolutely.
They're no fun, but
yeah,
I mean, it's just scary.
Yeah. So do my listeners, subscribers, and followers a favor. Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe where we can find you if you have any things you'd like to promote. Now is the time.
Well, to find me, it must be dank and dark. No, I'm the Fat Psychic. I'm 62 years old. And when I was I've been in metaphysics a long time. I started training in a group when I was 18, and now I'm 62. But I was murdered in a random act of violence when I was 30. So 30 and unlived, and which is silly. Just say it as it is. But that helped my abilities. So it actually, I mean, the near-death experience was so incredible for me that it just changed everything. So now I have everything but money.
Welcome to the club.
Having a lot of fun, doing stuff. Couldn't get arrested if I wanted to. But I have a great time. I have a great life. The near-death experience was great. The expansion from it has been great. The being murdered sucked, but that's what this came off of it. So so I can't go, I wish that didn't happen, because I wouldn't be who I am. And
right.
So that it had a lot of silver linings in it. It has a lot of not so silver linings like arthritis and everything else. I was stomped for 15 minutes, so it's every day is a reminder. But anytime anything really bad happens, or I've hit my head or something, it makes it a little better. So I get better
Yeah,
psychically,
yeah.
as
So,
because your body overcompensates.
okay, so for somebody who just randomly runs into this channel and doesn't know what metaphysics
Yeah.
are, could you give us maybe like a rundown, like a basic ABC kindergarten version of what that is?
Yeah, yeah, what I think it is. Well, it before I started, I mean, metaphysics, of course, it's really what you are as a psychic. You're an energy technician, and everything is energy. Everything has a source. Everything has an energy, a trail. So it's not just happening out of thin air. It's happening from a source, or it's happening because of something, or it's happening in response to something. So in metaphysics, like for me, considered a metaphysician. Uh, the I do the study of what makes our spirit, from us as people, what uh, where my source comes from, and the death experience, the near death experience, helped me understand, because I got to do the going through the tunnel and all that stuff, and you get to see, which is really a dendrite, which takes you into the consciousness, and I got just a little past the tunnel before I was sucked back in, and that when I a few years after that, then I started drawing out what I'd seen, and I went, oh, that's a neuron. That's what you're seeing. You start going, well, there's a lot more to it. Um, so everything starts from, for people, from the consciousness. Comes into your your spirit. There's a soul that comes in, a soul neuron that has the spirit as the nucleus that comes into the mother's body, gets into the baby, and the spirit is you. It gets clicked into the third eye.
Hmm.
The soul neuron watches from behind here for the rest of your life. It watches you, and then when you die, the soul is the first thing that comes in, watches you all during that time. When you die, it's the last thing it goes out. Make sure the building is, empty. Make sure it's all turned off, and then you go back into the consciousness. And animals do that. Everybody does that. When you die, there's a natural process. You kind of go back and forth. There's the Earth is a self-regulatory system. It has a consciousness of its own, and we're just a part of it. We're not the leaders of it, the controllers of it. We're not the whatever. We're just in it. We are one consciousness here.
All right, man.
And when you die, there's a natural process, and you go into the process, and then you can go wherever the hell you're going to go. I mean, wherever, not going to hell, but wherever your afterlife goes. And but the net, but it was actually a great, going into that next level is wonderful. Uh,
Right.
so it's not anything for anyone to fear. You just got to get over your fear of living. But everything is connected.
Wow.
We're made out of so much dirt and
That's
minerals,
that was an interesting
and
thing. If I can hold you on for a minute, if I can, you said the fear of
sure.
living. You normally hear it as normally
Yep.
you hear it as the fear of death. So could you explain what that
No, the
means? The
fear of
fear of
living.
living.
Well, when you come into this life, in my belief system, in the way I believe, because I'm reincarnated for a reason. I know why I was reincarnated. I know who I came from. I know you come. It's like a football game. There's a you come in. You try to accomplish what you can that you didn't before, or conquer whatever issues you want to do. And then when you finish and you die and you go back, they kind of go, what's, the thing that was the feeling for me when I started downloading was, what did you learn? And it's conquering all this. There's a fear of death, but then, people who commit suicide, they're more afraid of life than they are death, um, for a lot of different reasons. And our fear of life holds us back. And the people who succeed in life aren't letting those phobias and things hold them back. Even though, if, like for me, I have a lot of things that I have to conquer daily, physically, and PTSD and things like that,
Oh yeah.
and just physical problems from being stomped too many times in my life, not just from that. And you, you know, you come into this life knowing a lot more than what people think you do because you've inherited DNA wise, you have the DNA of all the people who put into your DNA pool. And you have their memories up into the moment they put in your genetic material. So you don't only get their eye color, hair color, skin color, talents, you also get their memories in the little curves of your brain. So you have the memories of all of those people up to a certain point. And then you are the new library book. You're creating your own story and you're recording what your life is going to be because your brain records about 3 million hours. So when you die, that becomes part of the consciousness that adds information to it. But if you
Interesting.
understand how the ebb and flow works, then you can set up a system in your system, go down into your system to learn what's your because the way the third eye is made, it has the pineal
Pineal glands.
gland. If you
Hmm.
if you cut it in half, the Egyptians where they got the eye of Horus, eye of Ra, that design is in the pineal gland. But the little teardrop thing is the actual place. When I was dying, what it feels like is you're seeing with those inner eyes. You're seeing with the third eye, and you start seeing it like it's superimposed. You see it, and you feel like you're on a diving board almost. And as everything downloads, and the people, you start seeing the people, the lights, and they're calling you, and you vibrate towards them. You're like on a little platform. Well, that's that little teardrop,
Oh
um,
wow.
the pineal gland. That's where the spirit you live. And then when you leave the body, that's where you go. You go to them, but you go through a dendrite, which looks like a tunnel. And then when you get out of the tunnel, your spirit is created out of electromagnetic plasma, which is ectoplasm and other things. And but there are a lot of colors there from different reasons, like um, a lot of greenish, yellowish lights and blue lights and things. So a lot of our chakra colors come from those elements. But if you
Right.
look in the universe, you can see purple nebulas, blue nebulas, green nebulas. Those colors of our chakras come from those elements, and that's part of our electrical system. So I don't know. It's people. The things like psychics. That's just everyone. Everything comes from here, goes out, comes in, goes out, and it creates the third eye has a lot of hematite. So that's a very interesting uh, element to have in your organs. But because
Yes.
of the iron in our blood flowing around,
Hmm.
making sparks. It makes and the hematite, the energy in our the metals and things in our third eye and other organs. It creates the spark that keeps it going. It makes an electromagnetic field, and those electromagnetic fields when we go out into the world, you're able to connect into the bigger electromagnetic fields, and everyone has their aura, and everybody there are dimensional layers that are created from the functioning of the Earth, where the center of the Earth is hot, molten rock that's shifting all the time, and energy comes out from the poles from that, and that goes into the atmosphere, and that makes the beginning of it makes layer upon layer upon layer
Wow, dude.
of electromagnetic fields. And as they get older, they pull down back because they're magnetized. They came from the center of the earth, so they pull back towards the center of the earth. So as they're doing that, each of those layers makes a dimensional layer. And as they come past us, as they're going down into the earth, like, if how is oil made? In the forest, the trees, everything was living, and then it falls in the trees, fall in, and the leaves lay down, and it turns into oil eventually. Well, the dimensional layers pull down back to the center of the earth with all it picking up electronically, basically through electromagnet, like static almost, but electromagnetically, pulling down all the information as it comes past us. It pulls our energy with it. So it becomes a thinking sludge, and it seeps back down to the center where it gets hot, gets cleaned out, and recycles. And that's how the Earth, part of why the Earth is a thinking um,
Organism itself.
being.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and it's a self regulatory system. And it comes from a self regulatory universe.
Okay.
And because the consciousness is not just our consciousness, it's old.
It's a
We're
collective.
just saying it's a collective, and it's connected through, like, if you look at, well, some of it I can't talk about, but the because I'm putting it all together, to put it out there. But um, but it's uh, one reason we have people from elsewhere that come here. They're not coming interested in us. They're keep it. The Earth is a organ in the universal consciousness. It has a place. It has a reason, and they use this place as kind of like an in between, and for whatever materials they need. So they come and they check and make sure the radiation levels are okay. They make sure they check us to see what our true developmental stage is. So that, because every time we start to get a little closer to it, then they kind of clamp down on it because they don't want us. We're like the redneck cousins. They don't want us coming over to visit. And we're to the point. Every time we get to the point that I mean, here we are. We're trying to kill each other because, well, you're not like me, and it's we're still fighting. You're this, you're that. You don't believe the way I believe. Blah blah blah. I'm gonna kick your ass for kicking you. Your
Wow.
mama's ugly. Whatever. And people wanting to blow each other up because they're on the other side of the damn tracks, and men trying to show that they got a bigger bomb than somebody else, and it's like, of course they don't want us to come here. We've screwed this planet up, but they have to make sure we don't kill it, because if we kill it before it's ready to transition, because every planet does transition just like we do. That's why you get black holes. But if you kill it before then, it would throw it off. The information it would be throwing off, because each black hole is a retina, and it's taking in information, but it also has a jet out the back of it that's
Hawkins
doing, like,
radiation.
it's yeah, well, but it's if you look at as a black hole like your retina, what does the retina do? It transmits. Where does it
Okay.
transmit to? The brain. So if you look at a black hole as the retina, and it's transmitting through its jet, out the back, it's transferring energy and information. So, uh, so if the
when it
planet
comes to the
transitions like we do, good.
so when it comes to the third eye, and you were talking about the metals
Yeah.
in the third eye, what does where does dimethyltryptamine fit into all
I'm not quite sure. I know which one that is. The so
DMT,
break it down.
DMT, DMT, dimethyltryptamine?
Okay.
Because
Okay.
from what I understand, that there that when you dream or when you first receive your
Yeah.
consciousness, I think it's a couple like I don't know, I can't remember the day, 46 days, something like this, after
Yeah.
conception, that you get a big shot of DMT, and it's also seen as the soul. And I
Yeah,
just
and
want
it
to know if
clicks
what's
in.
your insight.
Well, I can tell you where um once the soul comes into the baby, um then it kind of goes to sleep because it's a already an energy in a smaller container. So at a certain stage after the baby is usually I'd say about 18 months old or so like that, then it can click on at any time. And then you start then it begins. Then your recorder is recording.
Okay.
And up until then it wouldn't do it any good to be on while you're going blah 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 blah. It starts to click in about the time you begin to reach into your environment where you're walking and you're starting to learn. And some people click in a little earlier, but most people it's about 18 months, 24 months.
Okay.
And right now, of course, I'll have. To me, I was a child of the '60s. I was a little Christian child of the '60s, but I was a child of the '60s. And now it's kind of like gone back to the '60s because everybody's taking mushrooms and shrooms and drugs to open up their third eye. The problem is with that, if you learn a meditation, you can control and you learn a mechanism to get to the subconscious levels.
You mean
If you take a
like a mantra
shroom,
type meditation?
yeah, meditate. Well, I mean, I have meditations that I do that get me to where I do Akashic Library meditation, which takes you into your subconscious, into your delta, which is the cerebellum of your brain.
Oh,
And
okay.
the pineal stem, is when you're doing meditation, there's a level where they'll say, look at the screen. Well, that's in the alpha stage. That's right before you go into the stalk, to go into the deep subconscious. So, if you learn a process to access your own information, you can access it at will or continuously or whatever you want. If you take a drug to do it, you may get you'll get an experience, but you haven't learned the process. And then with the drugs, you have to be careful because then you get addicted to the drugs, and then it kills the process because then you're just chasing the drug.
Right.
So I
But
really suggest learn a
but
meditation, learn how to get into it.
yeah, but what's I don't from what I understand, because I've done mushrooms before, I've
Yeah,
done
yeah,
THC before. I don't
yeah.
know if I think psychedelics are more of a self-limiting type. If you want to call them drugs, I call them more like plant medicine.
Well, tools. They can be tools.
Tools, that's a good
They
word,
can be.
yes.
I mean, it's a tool. It's anything else, but if you use that as a way to get to the subconscious, then once the drug wears off, so does your ability to access it usually.
Okay.
And because your system, there is an electrical system you have, and you have to be careful and understand it and control it and make sure you're getting to each level and being able to turn it up, turn it down. Um, because I know someone who took some stuff and then they were wanting to open their third eye. Well, they opened their third eye and they started freaking out because they had
Right.
no way to shut the third eye or to open the third eye at will. And so they were freaking out at work, and I'm saying, and I went, well, You wanted to open your third eye, but you did it without procedure. So you can't just go one,
Yeah,
two, three, turn it up, turn it down. It's not. I wouldn't. It's not me going. I would just suggest learning meditation to get into the subconscious, because
very
if you
interesting.
do it with the drugs, it can. If what if you have an experience that you just cannot handle? If your aura is not in good working order, because you have a natural protective system, well, you lower it when you use alcohol or drugs.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that system working real good, and then you open yourself up to that, then everything is an energy. So you're an energy field within energy fields. And if you open your energy in a way where it's real thin, or it's not protecting you because it's not able to vibrate out the rest of the crap or filter out stuff, then you can get infected with stuff. You can get um, it's like Everett went from the 80s and 70s. I knew a lot of magicians. Well, all of them died early because they were pulling in stuff they weren't prepared for, and it gave them leukemia. And they all died of leukemia and cancer because it's very hot. It's very, energy can be very, you have to sustain it. And if you bring in a foreign frequency into your frequency, and it goes, oh, food, then you have to have a way not to become food, for it,
Hmm.
from older energies, because a lot
I had a
of the
very
older energies are
yes. I'm
thinking
sorry.
hungry sludge. Go ahead.
I had
Go ahead.
I had my first psychedelic experience was with mushrooms, and I was not ready.
Yeah.
I was not ready. I was about 19.
Yeah.
I was in the
Yeah.
military,
Well.
and I knew if I were to try, say, THC, that it stayed in your system for a very long time, and I knew mushrooms for about maybe a week. So if they were to
Yeah.
test me, I'd be okay. And I took, I think it was like 5 wet stems and caps, about, I don't know, every bit of 6, 7 inches long, about 5 of them. They were bought in the Netherlands, and I took them in Germany. And I gotta lie, I
Yeah.
won't lie to you, Mark. I had a hell of a time. Um,
Oh yeah.
I've never cleaned my room that fast. Uh, I realized if I stayed still for too long, that things would swirl too much for me, and that I would swirl with it.
Yeah.
It was way
Yeah.
too much for me, and it took me. And then when I did try THC, it reminded me of that experience, and it was too much for me. And I didn't become a regular user of THC until I was about 35, until I could go in and do some work. I'd had to do, like you were
Yeah.
saying, I did some meditation work. I did some,
Yeah.
I would start slowly and realize that I was going to be uncomfortable. So you're going to be uncomfortable doing this. And then it became something else. It became a teacher. But also
Yeah.
at the same time, if you let it teach you too much, you become dependent upon it. You have to know
Yeah.
when to hang the phone up as well, and know when you got the message.
Yeah.
So what you're
Yeah.
saying does speak volumes to me.
Well, you got to be able to turn it up, turn it down, and walk away from it when it's
True.
too much. And if you open it too much and you don't know how to control that, to say, it's too much for me right now. If it, depending upon what the circumstances, it can burn your system out, because you have a frequency, and that's why people sometimes will burn their brains out. Just opening up too quickly. So it's not that it can't be beneficial. It's just that you need to, I'm an energy technician, so you work that muscle so that when you want that experience, you can have that experience. Or if you need to psychically look at something, or you want to expand your consciousness, because LSD and stuff like that gets you to
I can't.
the subconscious level,
Too much.
and
12
that
hours
gives
is
you,
way too
yeah,
much.
yeah, no. And it's like, but if you do it without the drugs and learn to do it right, you have the same experience.
Interesting.
because
Oh,
it gets you
the
to
same
the level.
lesson,
Yeah,
the same lesson.
yeah, the same
Okay, there we
lesson.
go.
The reason that it's lights and colors and all that, because that's what it is. The consciousness is, we think of our form, and it's hard for us to think that when you're an energy, you don't look like this. And you don't necessarily, at some point, you go into whatever energy is, and it doesn't look like this. And so when you're going into your consciousness, you'll see all these flashes and colors and stuff. Well, that's the neurons shooting off. That's the nerve endings. That's you know, and it looks trippy. It's very trippy. And, but, you have to, we all have a connection to the ancient energy, even though, I'm a Redneck from Chattanooga. So why would I have, Egyptian stuff in my brain? Everyone does. Because at some point we have the
Oh,
DNA
I've
from
heard of
whoever and
this.
wherever we started from. We have the DNA connection. And
I've
the
heard that
Akashic
before.
goes beyond the Egyptians. But the reason the Egyptians are so much into our system is when the other people, the older ones that were here, when the ones left, the other ones stayed, and they started dwindling down, getting wiped out, whatever. They, like the Eye of Sahara, a lot of people. I feel like the Eye of the Sahara is like the Atlantis idea. There's a gentleman that
Okay.
has a great thing, and I know that resonates so heavily. But it makes sense for me from the older people thing, where the stories of the Anunnaki and all that, um, because when that place flooded out, then they just moved downstream with their technology to Egypt, down the street down to the Nile, and that's how Egypt became so technologically advanced. And then they held on to all that stuff and hid it and became, where the masters of it after the Anunnaki people died off, or the other people. There's more people than Anunnaki
Yes.
um, in our history, but that's why it went from so technologically advanced to going back to living, in dirt huts.
Yeah. There was
So,
something that. What do you
um,
think happened? What happened?
oh, Oh, a lot of stuff. Well, I mean, the Anunnaki story is the way that I perceive it, and other things. So, is that the other people came here looking for gold because they were making satellites to
Oh,
make
wow.
with gold sails to put around to get sunlight to their planet because it was so far from a light source. And they came here, and the people they brought as slaves, workers, were another people, another planet. uh, those people said hell no and rebelled, and they went, well, we have to have somebody do it because we're not going to do it. You know, I want what I want when I want it. So they had their female scientist, Tiamat, create, take what was here, mix it with what they had, and they made workers. And then that's where, then they were hybrids. That's where, um, and I don't want to offend anybody, but the to me that's where, like, when they talk about, because that was like they called that first batch of people Adapas, and the one of the Adapas that was the most loved, they put into, so he didn't have to work in the mines. They made him in charge of the gardens and the greenhouses where they were terraforming. And because they, why not, while we're here, let's make it pretty. Let's make it inhabitable in case we need it. And then he was hybrid, so they wanted to make a mate. Well, they gave him one of their girls. She didn't like him, so he liked her, but she didn't like him. So she said no, thank you. So they took a rib from him. And
Oh,
in the
wow.
story of Adam, when they
Right.
say, we had to take a rib. Well, now why would they have to take a rib from someone? Well, if they're hybrid, they can't
I
reproduce.
always thought it was
So
barbecue
they
myself,
cloned.
personally, but
Yeah. So they cloned something closer to him. And then later on they were fixed where they could reproduce, and then that's where it all kind of went crazy, and they got their gold and left, and there
so
were some of them that stayed, and then the ones that stayed, we are ancestors of a lot of those people.
so your Genesis story is more like a panspermia type story, but
It's
but
more like a what?
intentional, like a panspermia, but an
Oh yeah,
intentionality,
yeah,
like
yeah.
we're a colony of
I
slaves
think
for gold.
yeah, we were. I
Okay,
mean, as far as from what I understand from the myth, from the Sumerians,
okay,
who from their
uniform.
records they said. I mean, people go, oh, we get so many things from the Sumerians, like wheels. Something you use every second of your life, and things like that. And they go, oh, well, thank you, but we got it from those people, and that was where the myth of the Anunnaki came from. But I sort of believe it because of all the technology
Interesting.
and to the then you know and like I said, I don't want to offend anybody, but some of the stories that come from that are similar to, like, why would you take a rib from someone to make a mate? Well,
Right.
if they're
I always
hybrid,
wondered that.
you clone them. You clone them. It doesn't mean they're
Interesting.
subordinate. Doesn't mean they're secondary. Means that he couldn't reproduce. So they made a
Right.
mate that was from his same flesh. And then later on, they were able to make them where they could reproduce because they were different. We are different than them in a certain way. The people that were here that I believe they started with had hypertrichosis. And
What's that?
if you look at
What's
a oh,
hypertrichosis?
well, if you look at people, and there's still some people that it's like a throwback. We get throwbacks. I have Marfans, which is a throwback, which probably an alien
You have
throwback.
what? You have what?
Marfans, a connective
Morphine.
tissue disorder. So,
Morgellons? Is that
uh,
Morgellons?
um, uh, Marfan syndrome. Can you hear
Oh,
me?
yes, I can hear you. I'm just trying. I just don't
Marfan
know
syndrome.
the.
I
I
think
don't know it.
Well, they think Abraham Lincoln had it. They a lot of the people get real tall and lanky and tall and skinny and 7, 8 feet tall almost sometimes.
Okay,
Um, Very tall. I didn't get as much the tall as I did the connective disorders, but they have mummies that have it, I believe, from Egypt.
okay.
So that's why they had that strange thing of the big bulbous heads and the distended skinny legs and distended bellies and stuff. That kind of comes from the Marfan thing. So, but hypertrichosis is where, and there are people now that still get it, where they have very long hair all over their body. They look like a wolf
Oh,
man. And
yes.
there are still people who, it's thinning out, but yeah, that's a throwback to that. And the people
Exact.
that I believe they took them from they were starting from Africa, which is a very hot area, and I think these people were covered in hair to keep. They had developed that it kept their skin from burning off, and they took those people and then tinkered with that, and then because they thought we were ugly, we were hairy and ugly, and so they gave us makeup, magic, and mirrors. First thing is what the Sumerians said. They said they thought we were ugly, so they gave us makeup and mirrors and magic, and the system like the Keys of Solomon. I think that's a leftover from the magic that they brought, which those really are just icons, symbols to connect to the energy from their part of consciousness. And so when you're doing that, you're connecting to the older consciousness.
Okay, so
But if you
when
look
you're
up
saying this,
hypertrichosis,
Yeah, the hypertrichosis. You're saying it's a throwback and it still exists. Would you? I
Yeah,
know I'm going to go out on a limb here. Would you think consider that the forest people that people are running into, like the
yeah,
Sasquatches and things like that?
yeah,
Then maybe it's
yeah,
kind of like where we split,
yeah,
and there's still people with that gene. Okay, wow,
yeah.
I nailed it. Yeah, do I get a cookie?
And you get a cookie. Here you go. I've got some in there. Uh, but the people who came were very tall and thin. But we still have people. I mean, in Chattanooga, there was a guy who was 7'2" that worked in the grocery store. So there are people that have been almost 8 feet tall. In our gravity, that doesn't work. But we have people who are very tall, and that's the leftovers, throwbacks to that. But those people, in particular, they really liked those people. So when I've had contact with that kind of consciousness, they were like they're kind of watcher kind of things. They respected them so much that because everything was ritual to them, so those people became very special. And but yeah, when you see a Bigfoot, which every Indian culture you can think of has an Indian lore about Bigfoot, where
Yes.
I come from, they were Ewas, and they're interdimensional beings. That's why you don't
Is that the
just catch
Cherokee?
them. Everything. I mean, I think there are at least 45 different types of tribes stories out there of Bigfoot. And the reason you don't catch them is they're interdimensional. And
Wow.
they're part of the ancient something consciousness. And they're able to come in and go out. And they vibrate so heavily they can disappear into the back through the membrane of the dimensional walls. Because the dimensional walls, which I've had the chance, I've been able to see the material that the electromagnetic plasma, the dimensional walls are made of, is kind of a grayish, jellyish thing with like vibrating rice or threads or whatever, but they
You've
look more
seen
like
this?
vibrating rice in them. Yeah,
Okay.
yes. And when it stretches because of the 2 times a year when just whatever happens from the bands, the dimensional electromagnetic bands stretch. That material gets stretched and it vibrates apart. When it does, it stays apart for a little while and then it slowly goes back together. It heals itself. It's just magnetic. So that's why when it
Okay.
tears, you see more of that kind of crap. There's one in Chickamauga Battlefield that I've seen before that it's used ritually. Somebody set it up ritually centuries ago, I guess, as kind of a watcher of the boundaries. And so if you're out there May 1st in a certain spot, you'll see it walking by following a ley line. And it just still walking the energy field that it used to walk.
So you know
So
about
they're
ley
really more
lines.
interdimensional.
You know about
Mm-hmm.
interdimensional
A
portals,
little.
ley lines. Okay, I'm seeing you are a host of Universal Truths. What is Universal Truths, Mark? What is that?
Universal truths.
Yeah,
I
that's
was
what it
on a
says.
host. I was a host about. I've taken a break from it for a little while because I'm working on doing my fat socket cooking show.
Okay.
Which I thought you need a break sometimes. Your brain, because this gets to
It's a
be a
lot.
very heavy field. Because I'm talking to people's dead people all the time. I'm talking to dead people all the time anyway. And
Oh, wow.
there's so much because I do that, and uh, you know, and so many things have happened in my life, and the way that I survive it is laughing and having a good time. So I thought,
Yes. Yes. You're
And
nailing it, dude.
so
Exactly. You have to laugh. You have to.
you
It's
have to
sometimes it's just too
laugh
much.
because
You
it's so, and it's a great energy. You're not having to feed anything. You're not having to build anything. It's like love and happiness and laughter are something that come from you, naturally. And so, and if you get in your head with a lot of this crap that goes on and everybody's problems, and people come to me all the time, with terrible, terrible, terrible things,
right.
and I help them with the if I can help them, I help them. But then again, I'm like, but I have, I like to laugh. I do a lot of stuff, so I'm going to do a show where I cooked, but from my mean old grandma's good old cookbook, and she was a bitch. But she was the best cook I ever knew, but she was a horrible person. And then I collected thousands of recipes. I collected thousands of recipes, and I thought, and weird stuff. And she would, grandma was raised on a farm, and she was her and her sisters and brothers were basically just raised as slave labor back in the early 1900s. So when she was 8, they started teaching her to cook, and she became a hell of a cook. But she was one of the worst people I've ever met in my life. And she gave birth to the worst person I've ever known, which was my daddy, my sperm donor. He was horrible. And but she did a damn good food. So I thought, well, now, but if you went to
Aren't you
their
supposed to cook with
house,
love? Aren't you supposed to cook with love, Mark?
I do, and well, she cooked with something. Um, she was addicted to my oldest brother, so she would bring over giant plates of food and say, "These are for David. Don't you touch them." And would put them down, and it's that, she was just a real witch on a stick. And I'm a witch, so it's an insult to the witches. But I really can't say what I'm thinking.
Sure.
Let's just say she had to have some asbestos underwear where she's going. But she was a great cook. And so I thought, well, it got me fascinated with food. After she died, I got her recipe books. Was if she knew that, she is spinning like this in the
In a
afterlife, let me
grave.
tell you.
Right.
Because if she had thought about it, she'd have burned those. Because she would give you a recipe, leave stuff out, so it would turn out terrible. Terrible.
Wow.
And so she didn't want you to know her secrets. And but if you went to their house, you didn't eat anything that was in the pot, because it could be pig brains and eggs, or it could be squirrel brains or squirrel heads or anything. You never know. So I'm going to do a show where I do recipes out of my Mino grandma's good old cookbook. And then at the end of it, I'll tell a ghost story while you eat your cookie. And so I'll end it on it'll be comedy and horror combined.
That's me, dude. That's
and
me, bro.
and
That's
and
me.
I'm like, it makes me happy to think about it. But yeah, no,
Sounds
she was
awesome.
a horrible, horrible, horrible person. Evil. But boy, best chicken I've ever eaten.
Yes.
Made scratch cakes and things. I mean, from but she was cooking from. She was an Edwardian, so she was like doing Edwardian on type
Oh, okay.
cooking.
She was from okay, Edwardian. Okay, so like very old.
She was
Okay.
born. Well, she was born in 1907. So by the time she was in that 1915, the when the First World War was going on, they were forcing her to become a cook.
Oh wow.
And they just
Okay.
put all those girls could sling some hash, but man,
Yeah, like my
they were
ex-wife's, her grandmother is born in 24. She
yeah,
passed away in
100,
last year in 99. And I used to get
yeah,
German cookbook, and I learned a
oh
lot from her. And my grandmother
oh
was
yeah,
born in 1917, so after the war, and she was also a great cook. But they
oh
were
yeah, German.
nice.
Mine Mine had a lot of German in them, but they weren't the nice kind. But there are some.
Oh, okay.
I have a great friend Elfie where I have my store, and she's German. She's a sweetie. I have a lot of German. I have a lot of Welsh and English and German, and that kind of stuff. So I relate. But my father and them had a lot of German, but they had the stick up the
Yeah.
butt, kind of German stuff. Not the nice
Yes.
ones,
Yes.
but there are some sweeties. Great cooks, great cooks, all of them.
Dude, this is.
And it's
I,
like,
I think it's a good place. I think it's a very natural place to go because if we would keep going, it would go for 3 to 4 hours. You're that kind of guy. You have those kind of, dude, I gotta have you back on. Is that a possibility at all?
oh yeah, anytime,
Because I would love to
anytime.
get
We can talk
into.
whatever subject
I had so many questions, but you have a great wealth
out
of
there.
knowledge, things that I've intuitively know, things that I've learned for
Okay.
myself, and then there's things that you were
Yeah.
saying that I was like, okay, I got a question, but you kept rolling, and I was like, hey, let him go. Mark's rolling. Mark's going great. So
Oh, it's all right.
it's
It's
an
all right.
open invitation to you. I'm going to contact you. Maybe
Sure.
you can come on again later this month and talk with me.
Sure. I mean, yeah, just set up the time and we'll do it again. And I'm sorry
Yeah.
I didn't get to answer your questions, but
What are you
I'm
talking
kind of
about,
like,
Mark? You have
when I open my
you
mouth, it
are
all falls out.
no. It's the things that you're saying. Really, a lot of people might say this kind of crap, but it's very new age and stuff. But it resonates with me. It's like you're saying things that I know
It's not
that
New Age.
resonate with me. Where I go, yep, uh huh. That's how I feel. The universal truth, the old source consciousness,
Yeah.
that tainted word God, because I'm not religious at all. I don't dig it
Yeah.
at all. I like the concept of God and the connection with that, the source, the higher
Yeah.
power. I've had all that.
Yeah.
I've had that very deep within me, and deep within it that I
Yeah.
am one consciousness, connected with everyone's experiencing self subjectively, but also together, and all those things you're saying. I'm just like, okay, Mark, you're hitting all the, you're like Neil Peart or Peart, however you want to pronounce it, behind the drum kit over there. That's a reference to a rock band called Rush, who was one of the greatest drummers
Oh,
ever.
I know Rush.
And
Yeah, I
I just
remember
want to
Rush.
go. Yeah, I would love to go through and actually talk to you about your kit. Talk about the tom size, the deepness, and if you're using
Sure.
Remo heads, what size sticks you're using, what symbols you're using, and go
Well,
into
now
all those
you're
things.
you're now. I don't do any drugs. I'm a good old soldier boy. I don't do those things. Everything I do from horror. You know, but it's all natural. And we're taught to be so afraid of the human experience, and that's what I think I want to be. I think that's been my little thing is you're human. You're having the spiritual experience. You're here to experience this thing. And cuz when you die, that's what they want. They want to know, did you fall? Did you get up? Did you learn? Did you fail but you learn from it? Cuz it
Right.
whenever when you die, you start seeing that stuff downloading, and it's because it gets put into the computer. The consciousness is a computer, basically,
I would
and
love to
it's
get
a
in, like I said, you keep
thinking
saying they,
consciousness.
and eventually I want to get into what they
Yes.
is, but I know that's another 25, 30 minute conversation right there in
Oh,
itself.
sorry,
That was one of
sorry,
the
sorry, sorry,
questions.
sorry.
No, it's okay. It's just you get they. I'm like, who's it referring to? I guess when you say they, I'm guessing they would be us, but back there.
Well,
That's my initial concept of it. Like we are
it
learning. If
we
you're
are
in
part. We are
reincarnation,
part. Well, we are part of the system, but there is a older section of it that has more consciousness, and that's where a lot of the mechanisms come from. But it also, I mean, a lot of it just came from the universe living and functioning and building its own brain, and we just come from that. And there is no structure to it like we understand. If you, well, I'm going to keep talking because I want to say,
No, go for it,
oh,
man.
look at the voice. Okay, but no, look at the Voynich manuscript.
I know the Way manuscript.
Um,
I know what that is,
yeah. Well, you
but I don't know
well
what it
there's
says.
I know I
Little
know
joke for you.
I figured out I got,
Did
I
you?
figured out a few things. Yeah,
Because
I figured
I've
out a few
listened to
things.
Terrence McKenna talk about it, and he say it's a
Mm-hmm.
mix of German loanwords and Welsh dialect. No, excuse me, German loanwords mixed
Yeah.
with some Flemish dialect, but it's also used in some
Mm-hmm.
type of like weird algorithmic type like
Yeah.
poetry. It's almost indecipherable. But if you, I would love to get into the Voynich manuscript, which I don't know much
Well,
about it.
I don't know
That's
much, but there's some of the imagery I went, I know what that is. And where it has
no
like a
kidding.
structure where it looks like little circles of like buildings and things like that, that's the consciousness. That's the neurons in the consciousness. And in the older part, there's a structure, like your brain has a structure. There's a brain structure that is basically like the mainframe. So then you have little different, so around that, out of that comes the other neurons that become the consciousness that we come and go out of. But in the older part, that's,
Fantastic, dude.
it's the
I
brain.
think, yeah. One more time. This show, you got any links you want to send me?
I think I sent you my link tree.
Okay, okay, I'll
Um,
double check that again.
Double check
So
it. I
in the
got a
link
link
tree,
tree.
okay, I want you guys to go over and check out his stuff, especially the cooking, ghost, laughing
Well,
stuff. That sounds.
now
I'm
that's
serious.
coming.
I'm interested. It's
Yeah,
coming.
it's coming. We,
Okay.
as far as we just now know, that book is up to 500 freaking pages. So we're like, oh Lord, because it's going to be at least 3,000 recipes and history of
Okay.
funeral food, sin eaters. I found the one of the speeches the sin eater would make. I was like,
I don't know what a sin eater
so,
is, but it sounds it sounds
uh,
intriguing nonetheless. What's a sin eater?
well, well, in the old days when you died, if you were worried about the person dying, that they might go to hell or something like that, based on a Christian belief or Catholic belief or whatever belief, they would pay a person to come and eat their sins, and they would put food on the person, pay them money, and they would eat the food, which is embedded with the soul of the sins of the dead person.
Oh,
They eat it, and then take the sins, and then you would kick their ass while they're going down the street. I mean, kick their butts. And as they're going down the street, chase them off because now they've got the sins, and then your person can go to heaven without having their sins because the sin eater would
so
eat
that's
the
kind of like
sin.
it's kind of like a weird version of scapegoating.
Yes, and
Uh,
but for pay, and
for pay, right? You
during
don't
the
pay to
time of
goat.
plagues. No, and so if you were a sin eater, you could eat during the time of plague or anything else because people were paying you, giving you food to eat the sin of their people. And the modern day, up until the Victorian times, they were doing corpse cookies, putting linen pieces of fabric on they would put a cloth on the chest of the dead person, put cookie dough on there, let it soak in the energy of the person for a little bit, bake cookies and give them out, and you take them home and give them to people or save them for people who didn't get to come so they could share in the memory of the person. And then in funerals, that's why now it's gone down to people eating food at funerals instead of being a sin eater, but now you just buy pizza. But it's that kind of complex kind of
Wow.
thing. But it used to
Yeah,
come
yeah,
down,
because
you had to eat the
so
person's
interesting.
sins.
Like you're teaching me about our past, like European. I
Yeah,
think it's more European is what you're talking about, right? It's more European type traditions, correct?
yeah, weird stuff. Yeah,
Weird
the
stuff, yeah.
weirder
Because
stuff.
my Mayan girlfriend is telling me things like about yesterday. We talked about a thing called malos vientos, which is bad winds,
Yeah,
where like she has a cave on her property, and there's people don't go
yeah,
into that cave because they have these things called elusives in there. which is like Mayan,
Uh-huh.
like homunculus mixed with like corn sacrifice with blood and stuff. And
Yeah.
people get
Yeah.
sick,
Not good.
and it's this whole peninsula
Well, you have
is
to
like
think.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, see, the
please.
cave, if it has a lot of quartz content in it, it will suck the energy out of you. So,
It's all limestone through here, all limestone,
okay. Well,
which also has that kind
they
of quality to it.
that kind of whatever they have some kind of if they have any kind of material they're made of that takes a frequency like a crystal quartz or anything, they can become like batteries. They can become, uh, but they can also drain energy. So you have to just find out. Some of them can be weird.
We have so much to
But
talk
we were
about, my
talking.
friend. We
Yeah,
have so much to
no
talk
problem.
about. I don't think you're such an interesting guy, a very
Oh,
interesting
well,
guy,
thank you. Thanks, buddy.
a guy I would love to talk to a lot more about. And like I said,
Well, you're.
open invitation anytime you want to come back on there.
Oh, anytime you want me, I'll come
Okay,
back.
all right, buddy.
And we'll talk anything weird. And
Yeah, that's what I'm
if
into.
anyone wants to catch, if anyone wants to catch me, I'm on Facebook on Mark Elliott Elliott Fults Fults. You have my link tree. Um, and if it's easier to catch me on Facebook than it is email because I'm old and it's like the email just get I have so many since I started a business now I have so many damn scammers and it's like an avalanche of stuff that have nothing to do with anything. And I'm like,
Right.
good Lord, and those poor scammers when they call me, oh my Lord. I
I
give it to
speak.
them.
When they call
Um
me in Mexico, they speak Spanish, so I either speak English back to them, or the real fun one, I'm fluent in German, so I speak back to
yeah,
them in German, and they don't know what to do. So it's a lot of fun.
they
I
don't
have
know what
fun
to
with it.
that's great.
They don't know what's going on.
Oh
It's
yeah.
fun.
They don't. Yeah, I say, yeah, you want to buy my house? Send me $30,000 in gift cards and give me the code, and
Yeah.
I'll sell it to you right now. And they go, huh? So,
Right.
but
Right.
don't
So
ever.
remember,
And I'm telling y'all. Oh, go ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead, please, Mark.
Uh, I, I was gonna say there's a thing going on right now where they'll say, "Can you hear me?" And they want you to say yes, and they'll record your voice. And then if they get your other information, they can, like on my bank um, thing where you do the voice recognition. They'll
Right. They
record your
use AI.
voice, and so when it says say yes, and they'll play your little name. And so you have to say, "I hear you." That pisses them off,
I just
because they
go.
want yes. I tell them things that I cannot repeat here. But
Fair enough, dude.
but
Once again, brother,
I
thank
mean,
you so much for coming
but
on and sharing this. Like, we haven't even gotten into what you can do, your abilities, your that have gotten amplified ever since your experience when you were 30. I'm gonna have to do a
yeah.
lot of editing because you said the D word a lot on here, but that's no big deal, man. It's not. That's you. You
Oh,
tell your story the way it
I'm
is.
sorry.
No, don't, dude. That's
I'm
my
sorry.
job. This is what I'm the guest. I'm the host. You're the guest. I take care of all that. I had to do. Uh,
Well,
I had my other buddy
just
on
bleep it
recently.
out. Just
No
bleep out
worries.
all
I had to
the
go.
all the D words.
Yeah, yeah.
I have to
Oh, it's
learn
gonna
my
be. I'll be
snowflake
on it for about an
stuff.
hour. Ah, no big deal, brother.
Okay.
No
Well,
big deal. I swear, it was a blast. I had
I'm
so much fun
sorry.
talking to you. No, don't be,
All right.
please.
Well,
It was
thank
great.
you.
Thank you.
It was
Stick around
great.
for a
Well,
second.
thank
I
you
just
for
want to check
having
the
me.
recordings. Yeah,
Sure.
anytime. Just stick around for 1 second.
All
We'll check
right.
the recordings. I got a little outro, and then I'll be right back with you. Okay.
All right.
All right. So that was an amazing interview. Like, so many. I didn't. We went an hour in, and I honestly believe we can do 10. I know Mark doesn't want to do 10 because Mark is a busy man. He's got a business to run. I'm kind of doing a business myself here. Speaking of business, take time and subscribe to the channel. I would love that. That helps me out ever so much. Maybe eventually somehow Google will be able to find my address here in Mexico and send me my code so I can actually put it in. Cross your fingers for me. I might have to switch my address somehow and hopefully get that. But if you keep coming back, like and subscribe to the channel. If you want to become a member, do that. You can also find me over on Rumble. You can find me on Spotify, and you can go and listen to these wonderful conversations while you're, delivering Pepsi products, whatever it is that you're doing. Enjoy your life, and please remember, we are the eye of Jupiter. We are the eye, and we are aware. I love you all very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.